QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021 Accounts Receivable Graphs with the help of Excel. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars practice file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown, selecting the open windows list. We're now going to be taking a look at accounts receivable graphs. Last time we looked at the graphs that were in the QuickBooks system. This time we're going to export that information, or the information related to the graphs or the creation of the graphs, to Excel, make the graph in Excel in a similar way as it's shown within QuickBooks, providing us a lot more flexibility on how we want to present a graph. So first, let's take a look at our financial information. We're going to go to the Reports dropdown. Company and Financial, let's take a look at the Balance Sheet Standard. We're going to change the date up top to 02/28/21. We're concentrating here on the receivables. So receivables represents the items that owe us money, or people, customers, clients that owe us money. Then we can think about the detail for the receivable by who owes us that money. So I can then go to the Reports dropdown. We're going to go to the Customers and Receivables and think about that receivables by the Customer Balance Summary. So we're going to break that out by who owes us money with a Customer Balance Summary report. Changing the dates up top from let's make it 01/01/21 to 02/28/21. So now we have that same total, 14,172, but now broken out by the customers. So if I go back to the balance sheet, then there's the 14,172 as well. Now, QuickBooks provides us with a graph, as we saw last time, which we could cut and paste and put into our presentations as we did last time, which you can find in the Reports dropdown, Customers and Receivables, and down here in the Accounts and Graphs. And let's change the date up top, date to 02/28/21. And OK. So we're concentrating right now on this pie chart. So the pie chart now breaking out. So we got the total of the 14,172, and then we have the customers that make up that balance that are included in the key. So that's a nice chart, but you're really restricted to what you can do with it. And if you can export it to Excel, you have a lot more flexibility. Also, you have a lot more types of graphs that you can make. If you just learn to export the data to Excel, then you can do a whole bunch of things, in Excel. So let's go back to the Customer Balance Summary, and let's just start with this data. Let's just export this to Excel, and then we'll make a graph out of the data, which is pretty easy. So we're going to go to the export. Now I'm going to export it to a folder, a file we have already set up. If you haven't set up a file, then that's fine. You can export it to like a new file. So I'm going to create a new worksheet, and this is going to be the worksheet within the workbook that we're going to be setting up. And then the next step is that I'm going to put it to an existing workbook. If you don't have an existing workbook, you can put it to a new workbook, and it'll open up Excel. Now we're going to browse. I'm going to add this graph to this financial reporting system, meaning these are all the reports that we have been putting together for the month-end data, and I'd like to add a graph to it so that I can then print all that reports out from Excel, providing one PDF file with all that information related to it, so I can attach one thing to an email or something to give it to a client or supervisor. So I'm going to go ahead and export that. So there's our data. I'm going to pull this to the right now. So now we got our data. I'm going to pull it to the right. I'm going to rename this prior graph because I want to make sure it's an accounts receivable. So this is going to be what we did last time that we cut and paste. I'm going to make this an AR graph that we cut, and this is going to be AR. And then I'm going to double click on this one, rename it to AR graph that we cut. So this one's the one that from Excel, let's say. All right, and then I'm going to go to this second page for the page layout, and I'm going to say OK. And this data up top, I don't really want the header here because I'm going to manipulate this data, so I don't really want this. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete this. I want to get rid of the splits. So I'm going to go up top, and we're going to go to the view, and I'm going to remove the splits up top. So there we have it. That's good for now. I'm going to go back to the prior tab, and then I'm going to make it a little bit larger so you can see it by the plus arrow here, or hold down Control and scroll up on the mouse. And then I'm just going to remove this top date line. Don't really need the date line. I'm just going to right click and delete that. And then I'm just going to insert a graph. So all you do to insert a graph is highlight the data that you want. So I want this column and this column. All this all the way down. I'm not going to include the total. Not including the total. Then go to the Insert tab up top. And we want a pie chart. So we're going to go to the pie chart. And then I'm going to just use a flat pie chart. You could do a 3D. And that's similar to the one that we saw in QuickBooks. But the flat pie chart is really more of a fair pie chart. Because the 3D will distort the data. So if you want to manipulate the data and make it look like one customer owes you more money than they actually do, or less money, like if you use this pie chart, you can kind of, if you want to de-emphasize the fact that Pam owes us a whole lot of money compared to everybody else percentage-wise, you can try to move this to the back and it'll look smaller because you're emphasizing the front. That's the part that's being brought out here. Or if you want to emphasize the fact that Pam owes us a lot of money compared to everybody else, you can put that right in the front here, and that will so if you want to kind of influence, it's kind of a manipulative way to influence the data. To me, it seems like though. So I don't really like using the 3D, although it looks cool, because people distort the numbers with it in ways that I don't think are fair. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to go to Insert. And then we'll go to the drop down and just use a flat pie chart. So there it is. Not as fancy, but fair. So then if I roll this to the side, so there's going to be our data. Now, you can manipulate or change this pie chart in a lot of different ways. So I won't go into a whole lot of detail on how you can change it here, because you can go in, that gets into Excel. But you have the color coding. You can change the color coding, in general on this panel, and then you can change the formatting within the thing that we chose within this panel here, and then you got your key down below, and you can do a lot of adjustments to where the key will be, how you're going to adjust the key. You can put the title then up top, or possibly you don't want the title on the graph, maybe you want it in some other location. I'll put the title here, accounts receivable. Let's just keep it at that. They know it's a graph because it's a graph. So then also note that down here you might end up with the data with a lot of customers. So notice in the graph that was put together in QuickBooks, if I look at the graph, they stopped it at 10 people, and then they put everything else into other. So if you wanted to do that in here, if you had a whole long list and you didn't want to have everybody represented on the graph, maybe you want to cut it down so it's really specific, and everything that's past a certain point, I want to remove it. What I'll do is I'll remove the date here. I'm going to say let's move the total, and I'm going to say let's get rid of that. So I'm going to delete the total, and then I'm going to sort my data not by the name, but rather by the column C. So I'm going to sort the data. And then now there's a couple different ways you can do this. One way you can do it is I can select the two columns, and I want to sort it by column C. So I can go to the data up top. I can then sort up top, and then I could sort by the column C and sort the data in that format. I kind of like adding a table first and then sorting it. So the other way you can do it is you can add a table here. I'm going to say insert, go to insert, and I'm going to put this in a table format, which kind of it locks it in a little bit more into one table. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's put a table there. So now it's got a header to the table, but now we've got the table. And then you got the little drop down, so I can sort by this column. And this time I want to sort from Z to A. So now we have it sorted from Z to A in the column. Now we might want to say, hey, look, I just want to emphasize like the top 5 maybe. So maybe I want to just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then put everything else into other. So instead of having all these down here, I'm just going to sum this all up into other. So I'm going to say other, and then this adds up to the total of the 3898. So I'm just going to put 3898 here, and then delete everything underneath. So now I'm just going to select column 9 down to column 12, right click on it and delete. And this should still add up to, oh, hold on a sec. I deleted, yeah, I want to go from column 8 down, and then right click and delete. And then if I highlight these add up to the 14,172 still. So if I go back to QuickBooks 14,172, it still lines up. And now we are emphasizing just a few of the top 5 clients and then grouping everything else into others. So others fairly large, so you might want more than that, but that's one way that you can kind of limit it. If you have a whole lot of customers, you probably want to do the top 10 as they did in QuickBooks, or you might want to have a little bit more than that. You can limit it in that way. So those are typical ways you can manipulate this. And again, you can now change this chart in many different ways. So if I want to go to the second tab here, I can see how it lays out. So notice it's on 2 pages. If I bring it back over, now you want to think about, well, how am I going to, I'm going to put that on 1 page. How am I going to show this to somebody else? Because maybe I don't want the data on the right-hand side. So one method is you can then put this actually over the top of the data. And so then you have it, and then I can make this basically fill in the page by expanding it to basically a page here. You know, make it as big as I can for basically a page. And then you can see what that looks like in the page layout. So there's where it looks like on the page layout. And so you might want the header up top instead of actually in the chart. So you might call it accounts receivable up here, and then go back on over and say, I don't need the name here. So maybe I just don't want this at all. I'll put the header up top. So I can delete this if it'll let me. It won't let me delete it. So there, and that makes the chart a little bit bigger. So then if I was to go to the File tab and say, let's see what this looks like if I was to print it all out together now. I'm going to print out the entire workbook. Wait a sec. Let's go back on over. Let's go here, and then I'm going to go File and Print. And I want to print now the entire workbook. So if I look at that, and then I'm going to scroll through this, I got to delete that first page. And so here's our balance sheet, here's our comparative balance sheet, and I can print this all out on one PDF now. And so here's the one we did from cutting and pasting it, and now here's the one we made from the actual data. So if I go back then, another option you can do on this graph, if you wanna, rather than hiding the data, that we put this like kind of over the top of the data. Another option that you can do is if you want to print this all out is you can say, okay, I'm just going to copy this portion. I'm going to put this on another tab. I'm going to right click and you can paste it. I'm going to paste it just as a picture. So I'll just paste it as a picture there, go to the page layout and then back over. And then I'm going to make this as large as I can. And I could do that, but then this tab will be printing. If I don't want it printed, I can right click on this tab and then hide the tab. So then if I print the whole thing out, it'll print just this side and I still have the data tab to the left. If you want to unhide the tab, then you could select the 2 tabs. I held shift to collect 2 tabs, right click and unhide. And then I'm going to say okay. And so then now it's back. So this is going to be AR Excel. This will be the data tab. And then you might have, if I double click on this one, whoop, I added one. I'm going to right click and delete that. This one then will be the AR graph for Excel. So then you would hide the data tabs and you can print them out with the data tabs then hidden, and you would just be printing this tab when you print the whole thing out to one PDF file, so you could still get it basically on that one PDF file. Now, of course, you got a lot of different options you can do with this. You might want like a bar chart graph. So I could take this same data and I can insert and say, I want to see this in like a bar chart format like this. And so that's another way that you can present the data. I'll bring that down here, and you can do the similar kind of manipulation to the data in that format. So I'll put this up top. So you can put the title here, and now you got your standard bar chart. Here's how much each individual basically owes us. Anything that has a total down here, anything that's going to sum up to the total, will fit into a pie chart. And of course, you can do a bar chart with just about anything as well. So if you're not talking about something that's going to sum up to basically a total, then the pie chart, might not make as much sense. So you got to know when to do a pie chart and when not to do a pie chart. Then the other one that they added here when we go to QuickBooks is they added this one up top, which is the aging report. So you could do that too. You can go to the reports drop down, and then we can say, let's go to the accounts receivable aging, and let's take a look at the AR aging summary. And as of 02/28/21, we have this data. So this is the amount that's current. This is the amount that's past due. So you could export this data, but really you just need this bottom row to make the pie chart. All you need is so you could just type that into Excel. I can go back to Excel and say, all right, I'll make that chart by just saying this is what do they want to call it, 1 to 30, or let's say current, and then 1 to 30, and let's say I'll hit this 1 to 30 like that, and then we'll say, and that's the only two that we have, right? So that's 8949. So I'm going to go back over and say, all right, 8949, 8949, and the other is at the 5223. So then I'll just say, all right, 5223. The total there would add up to that same 14,172, and then we can just select those two and insert, and we want to see a chart that looks like that, all right? And then we've got our chart that's basically the same format that they have there, and then we want maybe to call it, they called it an accounts receivable by aging. So let's call it an AR aging chart or something. AR aging chart. So notice, obviously you have a whole lot. Now you can do whatever you want with this chart. You can make it different colors, and you can make it 3D and whatnot. Way more than you have in Excel or in QuickBooks. And if you get used to doing this, then again, you can add charts to your worksheets and to your reports much more easily and make them way more professional than you can have them be made for you within the system. So let's go back to the layout here. Let's just make sure it fits on a couple pages. So when we print this thing out, it'll be on one page. So I'll make that on one page. And so there we have it. So next time we'll continue on to some more charts and whatnot. It'll be great.